Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell, and you know what time it is. It is that time of the day where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to turn all of this uncertainty into your greatest competitive advantage. For my listeners, you know I am on a mission. I want people to shift how they think, feel, and act around uncertainty. And when disruption hits the marketplace, I want you to see your greatest opportunity. And luckily for you, I got a great guest today. Brand new book, powerful subject. In fact, we're going to be talking about one of the most important areas I think you need to focus if you want to thrive in an uncertain marketplace. So let's rock and roll. All right, welcome back to Thrive. And I want to present our guest today, Kay Miller. Now, Kay has an unbelievable background. I mean, she is a sales enthusiast, expert. She understands the realm of strategy and personal branding, which is really what I want to talk about today. But Kay, I always like to start out by having you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself, your journey, and your path through an uncertain marketplace.
Sure, I would be happy to. And thank you so much for having me. Meredith, I do just have to say one thing, and that is that you were recently on my podcast, which is Uncopyable Women in Business. We had a fabulous conversation about your book, which is behind me. But then since then, you have gone through just something, I don't know.
A little uncertainty.
A little uncertainty. And we talked about being prepared for uncertainty because you never know when it's going to strike. Wow, who would have thunk, right?
That's right. That's right. Western North Carolina is still crawling its way back here. You're absolutely right.
Yep. So we're thinking about you, and
Thanks.
you're in our prayers, that whole area. So just can't go by without saying that. So yes, I am. I've got a long history of sales, marketing, and personal branding. I started in outside sales right after college, ended up in a couple completely male-dominated industries. The first company, I was the only woman hired, young woman, dove into a pool I knew nothing about, and then went on to another company as one of the only women. And actually, overall, it was a great experience. And I became the number one salesperson for this automotive exhaust company. Got the super glamorous nickname Muffler Mama. So
that's great.
That still followed me, and that will be apropos to what we talk about in a minute. I've spent years in marketing, and just our recent book is called Uncopyable You, which is creating a brand that gets people to know you, like you, trust you, and we've all heard those, and also remember you. So personal branding is it's been such an exciting subject for me. And so I look forward to exploring that side of what I've done with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited about the book because I'm a little obsessed with this topic of personal branding. And one thing I want to talk about is, so when you started out in sales, and you started off right after college, did personal branding even enter the realm of importance with you, or when did you figure out that personal branding mattered, and does it matter more today than it did, say, 10 or 15 years ago? Is it more relevant?
Well, I think it is more relevant. I don't remember ever hearing that phrase, personal branding, 30 years ago. Hate to admit it was that long ago. However, the position that I was in as being one of the only women in a male-dominated industry set me apart from everyone. And it became part of my personal brand with, whether I liked it or not. I was different. It created some challenges because, I had to prove myself. They didn't think I knew what the heck I was talking about. And I often didn't, but it also gave me a foot in the door. So, I really encourage you listening to think about, what makes you different, because it can be a challenge, and it can also be an advantage. So that wasn't really a term that I thought about back then, but I knew I wanted to set myself apart. I knew I wanted to be different because back then, just like now, we all have competition and people don't do business with you because you're like everyone else, right?
Right.
Meredith, you have a very strong personal brand and people choose you because of that. And even back then, some of the things that I did without really even knowing about it or thinking it through was that I really had a branding promise. And I would tell my customers, even back then, no one will take better care of you than I will. So if a customer hears that, they remember that, right? And
Right.
especially if you back it up and you are there when they need you, you call them back, you answer their questions, you find out the answers even if you don't know them. So to me, your personal brand really encompasses so much things that I didn't think about them at that time in those terms, but I did do a lot of things to set myself apart and establish and reinforce my personal brand.
So when did it occur to you? There's two questions I want to ask. When did it occur to you, or when did you come into this idea that personal branding mattered and was important? And then the second is, why is it more relevant now?
Well, my discovery of the importance evolved, I believe. And, I could see that people would choose me over the competition. I still remember when I was in outside sales, going into my customers. Often they were distributors and warehouses, and people would say, "Hey, it's Kay. Kay, come on in. What are what's up?" And I'd have my donuts and, all the things. Some of those were not super original, but I really walked my talk. And so that the process that I went through, how I did business back in that day, it was personal branding, and it did lead me to become the number one salesperson. So it was very effective, very important. So it stuck with me all these years. But I think your answer is so important now. Is it more relevant than ever?
Yeah.
I think it is because, we're in this sea of sameness. I
Yeah.
remember traveling the country. I don't know about the world. I think it's not as pronounced in the world, but traveling our country, so many areas would be different. You'd have, certain areas that were known for something, the South or whatever,
Yeah.
and now it's so homogenized. And I think that's what our world has become. And we look at our competition a lot of times and we copy them. You
Yeah.
know, trade shows are a great example. You look across the booth, someone has a popcorn popper. So you say, oh, let's have a popcorn popper next time. So I think that the temptation is always, we're on social media. What are they doing? What are they doing? Is it working? And so we get into this real copying mentality, and then you don't have nearly as good a chance to stand out to your prospect, your customer. We call your target market your moose. So I think that is more relevant than ever because we are just bombarded with messages and advertisements and, you know, everything, salespeople. So I think now more than ever, it's relevant to claim your place in the world and to really, go big or go home. Really establish yourself as someone unique and different. And that can be done a lot of ways. As I said, I mentioned early on, I've always had a branding promise, and I
Yeah.
still to this day, I tell my customers, I want you to be successful. If you are successful, if we can make your customers successful, I'm happy. Now, of course, I'm happy when I make a sale, but I'm not happy if I make a sale and then they say, "Oh, can we have our money back?"
Yeah.
Not that that's ever happened, of course, but that whole win-win mentality is something that can be part of your personal brand and
Right.
just really makes you, you know, way ahead of your competition.
Is your personal brand, when you think about developing a brand, because my journey is a lot like your journey. I mean, I started out selling very much in a man's world, and I'd never heard of anything called personal branding. But while it was a fabulous experience, I was in the world of financial services, and most of the deals were made at the country club, on the golf course, in the men's grill. They were places I wasn't allowed to go. And I couldn't really ask, all of our customers, really men, were in the position of decision makers. I couldn't go drink a beer with them like my peers could. Their wives wouldn't appreciate that. And so I had to figure out a different way to succeed. And that different way became my personal brand. Like you, I stuck out because in a sea full of men, you easily knew who I was. You easily knew what I did. I had no idea that branding was something, but I realized it was the power of my success, is to figure out what was unique and valuable about me, what was different, and then to position that. But where does brand mean just your brand promise in business, or does it bleed into your personal life too? Are you trying to create a brand of you, or do those two not meet?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, as they say. I do want to touch on what you said as a woman, a young woman, or a woman of any age. Yes, these business deals are, take place on the golf course.
Yeah.
There are different, back when I started with this company, it was a Fortune 500 company, division of, and they'd have golf tournaments at the meetings. And I remember they'd say, okay, well, the guys are going to be playing golf, but the women were invited, the wives, the spouses, and they'd have spa treatments. So they said, this is great. You can go to the spa. And I'm like, can I say a little bad word?
Yeah.
Hell no.
All right.
That's what I said. I learned to golf because of my job. And no, did I know everything about sports and all the things they talked about? No, but I had other advantages. And, I claimed, like I said, I claimed my spot and got respect. And one of the things that I did that was really unique that men could have done but didn't is I went into my customer. So I sold through distribution all the way down to the muffler shops. And I went into a muffler shop and I said, can I spend the day here and learn how to install a muffler? I cannot tell you the impact that had on how my customers saw me, my management saw me. I saw myself, clomping through in the Red Wing boots I bought, steel toe boots I bought. So, I think you have to look for your own ways. There will be advantages being a man in a man's world. There will be an advantage to be a woman. And so to answer your last question, I think your brand is very much integrated with who you are. And my husband, who co-wrote the book, I guess I should give him a little bit of credit.
Yeah.
His title is Marketing Gunslinger and Kelly's Dad. So our daughter, everybody knows our daughter. She used to be on the calendar. Her birthday was a national holiday. People really knew us as a family. So yeah, I think your brand really does represent who you are. One of our brand symbols, and if somebody's not looking, our color is orange. I wear orange all the time. I wore orange to my piano lesson yesterday. And the woman that came after me and said, oh, that's a cool color scarf. I said, well, it's pretty much what I wear all the time. So yeah, that kind of answers your question. But yes, who you are, our personal branding book takes you through the process of really doing a deep dive into yourself, into your world, what's important. But yes, if I'm a skier, which I am, I have stories about skiing, and, people want to know who you are.
Yeah.
Not just, the company line, so to speak. I mean, when you and I talked, and you mentioned, afterward being in Asheville, I mean, I was so concerned about that. That became very interesting to me because I want to know Meridith, not just who Meridith presents to the world. So is that a good answer?
Yeah, I think so too. So that leads me to my next question, is that once you define your brand, I mean, the way I define my brand is I basically have the 5 words that I would want people to use to describe about me. And then I try to live to that brand, and I try to put the messaging out around that brand. But where does it go after that? How do you give a brand life?
Well, we do have symbols of our brand, and as I mentioned, color is one of them.
Mhm.
We have language that we use, and our biggest uh, piece of language is the word uncopyable, which if you Google the word uncopyable, spelled with a Y, not an I, will come up. We will come up.
Mhm.
So we have language that we use, and we have, just a philosophy where we call the target market our moose, and we are just really clear with that every time. Every time we are in front of someone or interacting with someone. So those are symbols of our brand. But of course, now we have stories of
Yeah.
customers we've worked with and the results that they've achieved through following our philosophy. And, like you, it's a philosophy where we want you to win. We
Right.
care about our customers. I think if you have that as part of your brand, that is, speaks volumes. And if you don't have that as part of your brand, I don't even think you have a chance, right? If you're
Yeah.
just saying, I'm in it to make money. So, really, the way you talk, doing this podcast, I'm explaining how our customers' success is so important to us. Um, I like to be a lifelong learner. I love to talk to you about your book, Thrive, and all of the stories that you have. So, it's a whole package that, can be defined, but also must be communicated in a way that's interesting to the customer
Yeah.
or the prospect. You don't want to say, here's my resume.
You're
Who's going to
right.
believe that? A brand is something that you really live. And the story that I have of being, working in a muffler shop is super unique, but everyone has a story. I
Yeah.
really challenge you. And, one thing I loved about your book, it had so many actual stories of companies and the histories and what they went through and what they did right and what they did wrong. And so a brand can't always be summed up into a paragraph. But even if it can, it needs to be more compelling, more
Yeah.
interesting. So really, everything you do, people are watching. You got to walk your talk. So that's what I think of branding. And if you're listening, you don't have a story, make one up. And I'm not saying invent one, but if
Right.
you have a customer that has a factory and you're trying to learn about their product, say, can I come into your factory and watch how things go? Can I, drive with one of your delivery people and understand this interaction? I think that you take what your branding promise is and you make it tangible and something the customer can really wrap their head around.
So where does somebody start? If one of our listeners is sitting here and doesn't have a define. I mean, I know we have a brand. I get that. You've got one, whether you define it, but you're not accessing it. You're not using it. You're not. Where do you start?
Well, yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't put some thought into this because, yes, whether or not you like a brand, you think you have a brand, you do have one. I don't think Kate Strachnyi was the first one that said it, but we interviewed Kate in our book. You can find her on LinkedIn. She said, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So that's going to happen whether you are intentional about it or not. So I
Mhm.
think the first thing is to really do an inventory, deep dive into what really is important to you. Look at the people that you admire. What are their brands? What are their beliefs? And what attracts you to them? Why did Steve Jobs change the world
Yeah.
by, being totally different than everyone else that was out there? So I think to be inspired, and of course to plug our book, we have so many examples of people, famous and not famous, who have really defined what's most important to them. And so that's where you start. And then you think, how can I communicate that to the rest of the world in a way, ideally, you're not just the best choice, you're the only choice because they feel connected to you. They want
Right.
to know you. So dig down deep, as they like to say, dig down deep and really look at who you are if you're older like I am, things may have changed through the years, your priorities, what you're about. But then look for opportunities to walk that talk and create stories around that you can communicate to your audience, or, moose or whoever, that really is meaningful and attracts them to you.
So tell us a little bit, as we get ready to close the show out, tell us a little bit more about your book and about creating this uncopyable brand.
Right, uncopyable. And when you look at products and services, for the most part, they are copyable.
Yeah.
But you are not copyable. And I just I did a deep dive, went down the rabbit hole. Out of 8 billion people in the world, no two people have the same fingerprint. Mm-hmm. So I think, realize who you are. Our book takes you through the process. So, of course, like I said, go buy the book. And buy Meridith while you're at it too, if you don't have it. But, go through the process of deciding who you are, what you want to communicate, what impact you want to make on the world, the legacy, and again, how can you live that? And so really there is a process in the book where you go through and think through a lot of this that you may not have thought about ever, mm-hmm. or even for a while. So really it is a lot of introspection, and then it's thinking, how can I spread that to the world?
Yeah,
I wear orange every day, and people say, one of my friends said, you don't really look that great in orange. I'm like, too late now.
Too late now. It reminds me of Mary Beth Kizmeski in Red Zone Marketing. She always wears red. I mean, red is her signature color, and that is what she puts out there. Well, Kay, I always like to end the show with 2 questions, and you can answer it any way you want to. And then I know you got a special offer for the audience. Is number 1, how do people find out more about you, find out more about your book, find out more about just the depth of work that you have done? And then the second question is, if you had one piece of advice for our audience out there listening and trying to figure out how to navigate this crazy, uncertain world, what would that piece of advice be?
Okay, so you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Miller, K-A-Y. And you can find our website is beuncopyable.com. And also I have, as Meridith mentioned, a special offer. If you go to beuncopyable.com/thrive, we will deliver you a 5-part email series where you can really dive into these topics. So those are the ways that you can contact me. I'm guessing Meridith will provide those links.
Yes.
Our books are on Amazon or independent bookstores. I'm still cheering for Barnes and Noble. My challenge to you, the last thing, what would I recommend you do? I recommend that you look for 3 words that people can say about you that they can't say about anyone else. Now,
wow, that's a great challenge.
So start thinking, and maybe 1 word you share with someone. But for me, if you look up Kay Miller, Muffler Mama, Uncopyable, and Orange, no one else, even leave off the Kay Miller, no one else can fit that exact, brand, that personal brand. So look for things, and really the color thing is something we've told clients for years. We've recommended. Not many people have the guts to just really go in on that, but the ones that do, man, they've got such an advantage. I just talked to one. Oh, you're the one who sparkles. Or the other woman you mentioned that wears red.
Yeah.
You're the one that wears red. Anytime that someone can say, oh, you're the one that, and you say something that no one else can say, hey, you have a strong personal brand that's very memorable.
Yeah. And in today's world, in today's overcrowded marketplace, I think being memorable, I think standing out, giving people a way to be triggered by you in some positive fashion is really what we're all looking for. Well, I am going to sign up for that email series. I'm excited about it. I've already got the book ordered. And Kay, I just want to thank you. I mean, this is such an important topic. In today's world, we're not selling products and services. I can sit right here in my house and Google and buy anything I want to. When I interact, when I choose somebody over the competition, I choose them because of who they are, what they stand for. And I'll never know what that is if people don't define and understand their brand. So I really want to thank you for being here. I really want to encourage everybody to go to beUncopyable.com. Check out the book. Sign up for beUncopyable.com/thrive to get the email series. And again, thank you so much for the topic. Thank you so much for the conversation. And thank you, audience, for joining us for another episode of Thrive, the show where we dive into the strategies, everything that you need to know to turn uncertainty to your greatest competitive advantage.
Thank you so much, Meridith.
Thank you.